long time ago. I want you to imagine at the very beginning. Do you remember we told you the story about the origins of science? When everything was dark and so cold that our night would look like daytime, and our ice would feel like fire? Well, and way back then, in that icy cold and that dark, there was a fiery cloud of light and heat. And in that cloud of light and heat were all the particles that decided to become the air, the liquids, and the solids. And they all had rules to follow and work to do. Yes, Paula. And then the cold particles followed the rule to go down. And the hot particles followed the rules to go up. And the heavy particles followed the rules to also go down. And the light particles floated to the top. And 4,600,000,000 years later, those particles are still following the same rules and doing their same work. And life went on and on like that. The air, the liquids, and the solids, all following the rules and doing their work. But then something happened. All those volcanoes were exploding and making clouds of ashes. And it rained and rained and rained. And that rain went down the mountain and ate the mountain and dropped it into the ocean. And it made the ocean really, really dirty, like green split pea soup. Yeah. So then what? There was an argument. Whose fault is it anyway? And, zoom in. Hi, Genesis. The sun went, oh, no, what is happening? And the sun said, oh, what is going on for my beautiful friend, the earth? It is so dirty. Whose fault is it anyway? And they said, it's water's fault. Why is it water's fault? Oh, yes, water. Why are you getting yourself so dirty? And water said, it's not my fault. My job is to go down and to the sides and to flow and fill all the crevices. I'm just going down. It's air's fault because air is dropping me on top of mountain. And air said, no, it's not my fault. I'm just doing my job and following the rules. My job is to go everywhere there's space. And when I'm cold, I go down. And when I get hot, I go up. And I love giving water a piggyback ride. I'm okay with that. But then mountain gets in that way. And mountain doesn't let me pass. And water gets too heavy and she falls. So it's that mountain fault, those solids. Oh, mountain did not appreciate that. And mountain said, look at me. I am so beautiful and I'm doing my work. And my job is to stay still and together. And I'm doing my job. It's not my fault if I get hot and air has to go past me. And it's the sun's fault. And the sun said, oh, my fault? It is not my fault. I'm just doing my job. My job is to heat everything in space. I am a giant star millions of miles away. Well, they argued, not for one day, not for 1 year, not for 10 years, but for billions of years. 4,600,000,000 years. They argued and argued. Let's go back to the story rug. Well, in this argument, while they were arguing, something very special came. a blob of jelly. And that blob of jelly began to eat all that salt in the ocean. And that blob of jelly ate and followed the rules and did the work it was meant to do, because it got everything it needed from the air, the water, and the mountains. Its job was to eat, grow, and make more of itself. In fact, the way it made more of itself is it split up. Like if you were to take one car, split it up, and you have 2 cars. And then those 2 cars split up, and then you have 4 cars. And so this blob of jelly went around the work of cleaning up all the oceans. And if you see here, this was during the Paleozoic period. Paleozoic. Paleo means old, and zoic means time. So this is the old, ancient time. See that word? There it is. And the blob of jelly went on, but then another problem showed up. The water was so itchy, and this blob of jelly got so itchy. Did it find a solution? Did it find a solution? Yes, there's always a solution, even if it takes millions of years. And so that blob of jelly learned how to make shells to protect itself. And here we have like the first snails. And these little shells, can you see the little snail, Skylar? Can you see it? And so the shells were made to protect that blob of jelly. And so it wouldn't be itchy anymore. And so then what happened? That all of these creatures were doing all the work. That one creature had to do the eating, the making more of itself, the moving, the growing. Oh, but pretty soon it wanted some friends to be with. And so they gathered lots of cells together to make the first corals. And they were each doing all the work, but this time they had friends to be together. And here they are as the coral reefs. Can you see these? And each little piece is doing all the work of eating and growing and making more of itself. And at some point, they started to talk to each other and said, hey, how about we each do a different job? That way we don't have so much work to do. And they worked as a team, and they divided the work. And so then we got animals with organs. And some would do the eating, and some would do the growing, and some would do making more of itself. And here we have the starfishes, where parts did the moving, and we still have starfishes today. Parts did the growing, and parts did making more of itself. And they began to grow, and the sea became crowded with lots of creatures. And the first plants began to grow. And as these creatures were eating up the oceans and cleaning everything up, the ocean began to get cleaner and cleaner. And as it got cleaner and cleaner, the sun could shine down. And some of these creatures, the plants, learned how to use the sun to make their own food. And our plants, from many 600 million years ago, were the first to learn how to make food from the sun. So here is an example of like a blue-green algae that's still around today. And this blue-green algae kept cleaning up the sea, and it would wash up onto the land, and it kind of liked hanging out near the land until the next tide came. And the ocean was really crowded because all of life was still in the ocean. So this little blue-green algae said, hey, I want to be on land more permanently. I want to leave the ocean. Did it find a solution?
Yes.
It did. It found a solution. And you can type the solution you think it is. The solution was to make its own roots so that it could stick to the rocks and not get washed back by the ocean. And so it did. And so here it is. And it started to get roots, and it would hold on to the rocks of the ocean and rocks of the land. And now pretty soon plants started to be the first life coming onto the land. Wow. In that crowded sea, lots of problems were happening. Because guess what? The more creatures that are in there, and they all have to eat, and they all have to make more of themselves. Uh-oh, things are getting dangerous. And we had the big sharks that were coming in to eat all the fishes. And they had armored skeletons. So pretty soon, fishes had to develop a faster way of moving. And so they developed skeletons that were inside their bodies and really cool fins on their backs and on their sides to help them move super, super fast, like this shark. And lots of experiments kept happening. And the fish began to be in huge numbers. This is all still in the Paleozoic time period. And lots of different types of fish began to develop so that they could camouflage and protect themselves and be able to eat and live and make more of themselves without being eaten. Well, now the plants were on land. Do you think the animals wanted to be on land too? Yes, they did. So they did another experiment. Right now, all the animals that went up on land needed to be able to breathe the air in the land. But right now, the only thing they know how to breathe is the air in the water. So, one special animal came up with a little sack that you could hold oxygen from the ocean, jump up on land, and be able to breathe. And thanks to this frog, which is an amphibian, the amphibians came, and they were the first animals found on the earth. Can everybody say ribbit? Ribbit! Ribbit! Yes. And just like the fishes, lots of different varieties started to happen so that they could protect themselves, make more of themselves, and find what they needed to survive. Yes. And different amphibians started to form. Some with really long tails so they could move quickly. Some with spines on their back so that they could protect themselves. And some with poisonous skin, like this blue dart frog that you see here. The poison dart frog. Thank you, Luciano. Wow. There was a problem. Guess what? The fishes had come and they had done lots of experiments. The amphibians have come and they have done lots of experiments. And the plants have come and done lots of experiments. But guess what? The amphibians have to leave their babies in the water because their babies, their eggs still need water. But we love to take care of our babies. So that was a problem for the amphibians because they wanted to stay on land, but they didn't want to leave their babies behind. Did they find a solution?
Yes.
Yes. Life always finds a solution. Always. And after many, many years, the reptiles came. The age of the reptiles. And now we're not in the Paleozoic anymore. The reptiles are the beginning of the Mesozoic period. That's the middle time in between the old time and the new time, which I'm about to tell you about. And during the Mesozoic, the middle time, the reptiles were the heroes. And during the age of reptiles, Now the babies could come on land. And the reptiles started off small, trying to hide on land, like this little turtle. So before we had the sea turtle, and now we had our tortoises that could be on land. And then they followed the same rules as everything else. Eat, grow, and make more of yourself. Eat, grow, and make more of yourself. And they had the same needs as all other life. They needed air, they needed water, they needed food, they needed shelter, they needed to take care of their babies. And so the reptiles came in many different shapes and sizes. And here's the amphibian turning into a reptile. And even in the ocean, there started to be some reptile, yes, a huge dinosaurs, reptiles in the ocean. And this one, I'll let you look up the name and post it on Class Dojo. You'll know what this is really shortly. And then other dinosaurs came protecting themselves, like this one. There's another one to look up. And this one, you probably already know the name of this one with its 3 horns. The Triceratops, right? And dinosaurs were able to grow to enormous sizes because nothing else was attacking it. It was the top predator, and they took over. So smaller reptiles hid, and the snakes learned how to hide. And our plants were still experimenting, and now seeds were forming, and plants were staying on land. You can see the seed right here, and stems. They hadn't quite developed into lots of leaves yet. And the insects started coming out. And the insects grew to enormous sizes. This fly would have been as big as Milan. Can you imagine that? And they were the first flying creatures. The birds started to come around during this time as well. They were not going to be left behind. And then giant beetles like this scarab beetle, which was very well known by the Egyptians. And that's a story for another day that you can look up. And they grew to enormous sizes. Well, these reptiles were eating everything. And they were eating each other's eggs. Oh no, what to do? And they took over all the land. Was there a solution to protect their eggs and protect each other? Yes, of course there's a solution. You are correct. Yes, well, that's where great wings were formed. And animals took to the skies like the insects, and the first birds appeared. And now they could make their nests up high in the trees away from those pesky reptiles. And they found a way to make fur, and besides feather, to keep themselves warm. And so now you have the creatures like the zebras and the giant tigers with their teeth, and enormous mammoth elephants. And all of these mammals were able to survive and go into cold places and small places, and they had a special gift. For the first time, they didn't have to leave their eggs outside. They could now carry their eggs on the inside, in their bellies, inside a special place called a womb. And with that, the mammals were able to survive when the dinosaurs died out. Do you remember that? We know that during the age of the reptiles, during the Mesozoic time, a giant asteroid hits the Earth. And when that asteroid hit the Earth, some people think that that's when the moon formed. And a part of the lithosphere, remember, kicked back out as the moon. And so during that time, the air became dirty from that asteroid. And volcanoes started to happen. And the air was so filthy, nothing could really breathe. And the reptiles had eaten so many of the plants, and they died out. And only the creatures, such as the birds and the insects and the mammals, who could withstand the cold and hide in the caves and hibernate, were able to survive. And the plants also adjusted, and they developed different seeds and flowers and fruits to help them survive no matter the weather. And at the very end of all of this, where all the needs were being met with air and water and food, and we were taking care of each other, we were protecting, right? The animals and the plants were protecting each other and making more of themselves and working as a team. A very special creature came at the very end. And that special creature that came during the new time, the Cenozoic time. Ceno means new, and zoic means time. Cenozoic. And during the Cenozoic time, a very special creature came. Once the land had been prepared, and the air was clean, and the oceans were clean, and there was plants to eat and animals to eat. And this creature came with some special gifts. And the special gifts was, this creature is not an alien, but a human. And the human came with a heart to love, a mind to imagine, and hands to work and serve. And this creature had the same needs as the reptile, the fishes, the invertebrates, like this ginormous squid, and even the same needs as our insects, like the butterfly. And all of these needs, but the human had a very special need that the other animals didn't. And I'm going to use, the other day I used Natalie's sloth. Today I'm going to use Luciano's special gift. I want you to look down on my rug here and see if I can show you. So humans have special needs. See if you can see that. Humans have a need for water. They have a need for food, but they also have a need for special things. They have a need for stuffies, to feel loved. They have a need to make beautiful objects like this doll from the Dominican Republic. Maybe for decoration, maybe to remind you of your family. And sometimes we make special things, maybe to practice, to explain why things are made, or to explain how things happen for religion. And so we have both material and spiritual needs. Spiritual needs are those things that make you happy or make you feel a certain way, that aren't met by food, water, air, right? And that, my friends, is a story for the day. All right, questions. Raise your hand for me. I see Kai has his hand up. Kai, what's your question?
Yo paro. Paro. Puedo parar.
So Kai, could you type your question?
And then put it in water. Not hot water, cold water.
Yes. This one is cold water, and sometimes we want hot water when we take a bath. I'm going to show you the whole timeline one more time, okay? Here we go. See if we can follow it so that you can see it from beginning to end. In case you have any questions. All right, try typing it in. Here we go from the beginning. All the way across. All right. Okay, anybody have a question? We'll need to talk one at a time for me to help you.
Debo parar.
Thank you, Miss Pendis.
Debo parar. Okay, I'm just gonna stop.